There was a moment in history when everything changed. A new generation emerged, hungry for freedom, rhythm, and rebellion. Rock and roll exploded in the 1950s as a cultural shockwave, breaking rules, shaking up structures, and giving a voice to millions of young people who no longer wanted to fit in, they wanted to stand out. Icons like Elvis Presley, Chuck Berry, and Little Richard lit the spark. Electric guitars, pounding drums, voices bursting with emotion. Music was no longer just entertainment. It was a revolution. And the most incredible part? That revolution crossed genres, cultures, and color lines. Rock and roll shattered racial barriers, united worlds, and became the universal language of youth. But what was the exact moment when it all became unstoppable? Is there one song that truly transformed the entire music industry? Today, we're diving into the 5 songs that, according to experts, changed everything. And at the end, I'll reveal which one was the true spark that set the global fire of rock ablaze. In the early 90s, rock seemed to have lost its edge. What once stood for rebellion and raw authenticity had become polished, predictable, and increasingly disconnected from youth reality. And then, Nirvana happened. Smells Like Teen Spirit hit like a grenade thrown straight into the heart of the music industry. From the very first dirty, distorted chords to Kurt Cobain's anguished scream, the song jolted an entire generation awake. Its mix of chaos, apathy, and raw emotion didn't just revive rock, it transformed it. Suddenly, the rules changed. What used to be underground, alternative, fringe, became the new mainstream. The song became the anthem of the grunge movement born in Seattle, heard around the world. It was the battle cry for those who were tired, invisible, misplaced. And there was Nirvana, singing for all of them. The music video with that gym full of punked out teens and cheerleaders wearing the anarchy, Amade, it crystal clear. This revolution wasn't clean, but it was real. What's wild is that Cobain never meant to write a generational anthem, but he did. The cryptic lyrics, the line, "Here we are now, entertain us," they were a blend of irony and honesty that hit hard. Smells Like Teen Spirit didn't just change the sound of rock, it changed its attitude, its image, its very purpose. After that moment, record labels scrambled to find the next Nirvana, and countless alternative bands crossed into the mainstream. Grunge took over the radio, the covers, the culture, and it all started with a song that didn't ask for permission to be loud. It just was, and no one was ever the same again. Before the Beatles, pop music was fun. After the Beatles, it was a revolution. And it all changed with one simple, direct, and absolutely irresistible song, "I Wanna Hold Your Hand." It wasn't their first hit, but it was the key that opened the door to America, and with it, the entire world. Released in December 1963, the song hit American radio at the perfect moment. John and Paul had captured something magical, a bright melody, rich vocal harmonies, and a message as simple as it was powerful. "I Wanna Hold Your Hand" wasn't just a romantic phrase, it was a declaration of closeness, of human connection in a world that was starting to feel more distant. When it played for the first time on American radio, it was like someone had set off a volcano. Beatlemania, already growing in the UK, exploded across the Atlantic. Crowds of fans, screaming, hysteria, headlines, interviews, and then the historic performance on The Ed Sullivan Show. More than 70 million people watched that night, and pop music would never be the same again. I Wanna Hold Your Hand didn't just mark the start of the British invasion, it rewrote the rules of musical success. It proved that bands could write their own songs, that charisma and talent could cross oceans, and that youth had found a new soundtrack, one that didn't just make you dance, it made you dream. And to think it all started with a song under 3 minutes long. 3 minutes that changed the history of popular music forever. Because with that melody, the Beatles didn't just conquer America, they conquered the world. Were you ever a Beatles fan? Let us know in the comments. For now, let's keep going.
People call, saying beware, doll, you're bound to fall. You thought they were all like a rolling stone.
In 1965, Bob Dylan didn't just release a song. He released a manifesto. Like a Rolling Stone was the moment folk music went electric, poetry went mainstream, and popular music shed its old skin for good. Up to that point, Dylan was known for protest songs and acoustic anthems. But with this 6-minute epic, he set fire to everything he'd built and created something entirely new. From the very first hit of Al Kooper's organ, you knew something different was about to happen. It wasn't just the electric sound draw. Dirty, urgent it was the attitude. Dylan wasn't singing to please. He was challenging, pushing, biting, and he did it with lyrics that were long, sharp, and packed with imagery that felt more like literature than pop. How does it feel? It wasn't a question, it was a slap in the face. Dylan aimed at superficiality, at those who'd once been on top and fallen, and maybe even at himself. The song spoke of alienation, of hitting rock bottom, of rediscovering yourself with nothing left. It wasn't comfortable, but it was real. And that made it essential. At the time, the length was outrageous, over 6 minutes in an era of 2 to 3 minute singles. Record labels pushed back, but the audience didn't. The impact was immediate. It shot into the top 10, and ever since, it's been hailed as one of the most important songs in history. With Like a Rolling Stone, Dylan erased the line between art and commercial music. He opened the door for rock to be more than catchy hooks. It could be reflection, critique, poetry. And that shift is still felt today. Because from that moment on, no one ever wrote songs the same way again. Before rock and roll even had a name, it already had a sound, and it was the sound of Chuck Berry's guitar. With Johnny B. Goode, released in 1958, Berry didn't just write one of the most iconic riffs of all time. He wrote the story of how a kid with a guitar could change everything. The song tells the story of Johnny, a poor southern boy with dreams of becoming a music star. But in truth, Johnny was Chuck and the song was an autobiography disguised as a tale. At a time when black artists had to fight for every inch in an industry dominated by white performers, Berry shattered barriers with talent, charisma, and attitude. Johnny B. Goode was a sonic declaration of independence. With its electrifying riff, infectious rhythm, and lyrics about dreams, struggle, and hope, Berry planted the seed of modern rock. Everyone who came after, from the Beatles to AC/DC, drank straight from that well. It was also one of the first rock and roll songs to put the guitar front and center. That opening solo doesn't just kick off the song, it kicks off an era. So much so that when NASA picked music to represent humanity on the Voyager spacecraft, Johnny B. Goode was one of the few songs chosen. It was literally sent into space. More than just a classic, Johnny B. Goode is the DNA of rock. And the best part? It still sounds just as young, just as ambitious, just as free. Because as long as there's someone out there with a guitar and a dream, Johnny's story will keep on living. And hey, if you're a Chuck Berry fan, check out our full video on his life story right here on the channel. Totally worth it.
9, 10, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, rock, we're gonna rock around.
Before Elvis shook his hips, before rock-filled stadiums, there was one song that started it all. In 1954, Rock Around the Clock was heard for the first time, and the history of music changed forever. It wasn't just a hit, it was the commercial birth of rock and roll as we know it. The song didn't invent the genre rhythm, and blues had already been pulsing through black communities, but it was the first to bring that explosive sound to white audiences and the global mainstream. With its fast tempo, simple structure, and party-ready lyrics, Bill Haley and his Comets did something no one else had. They brought rock and roll into every home, every radio, every corner of the world. The true explosion came in 1955, when Rock Around the Clock played over the opening credits of the film Blackboard Jungle. That scene teenagers breaking rules with the song roaring in the background became the ultimate symbol of a new generation that didn't want to obey. They wanted to make noise. And in that moment, the unbreakable bond between youth, rebellion, and music was born. Rock Around the Clock became the first rock song to hit #1 on the Billboard charts, setting a precedent that couldn't be ignored. Record labels took notice, the doors blew open, and a tidal wave of artists and bands jumped on that unstoppable train, the sound of a new century. That's why this isn't just another song. It's the Big Bang of rock, the one that started the engine, broke the rules, and made the whole world move to the beat of an electric guitar and a pounding drum. Rock Around the Clock didn't just change one generation, it changed all of them. 5 songs, 5 historic moments, 5 artists, while whether they meant to or note-shaped the music industry from the ground up. But what did they all have in common? Why these songs and not others managed to change everything? First, they broke the mold. In their time, each of these songs defied the rules. Nirvana crushed the glam of the 80s with distortion and apathy. Dylan electrified folk poetry. The Beatles turned a simple melody into a worldwide fever. Each one said, in its own language, "This is new, this is different, this is going somewhere else." Second, they tapped into real emotion. They spoke about things people felt but couldn't quite express. Alienation, hope, young love, rebellion, the longing to be more. These weren't songs made to entertain. They were songs made to wake people up. And that, in any era, carries massive power. Third, they marked the beginning of something bigger. None of these songs were just hits. They were launch pads. They changed how music was written, produced, and promoted. They opened doors for hundreds, if not thousands, of artists who followed. And finally, they left a mark that doesn't fade. Decades later, they still play not as dusty relics, but as living anthems. Generations change, but the energy inside these songs keeps reaching new ears, new hearts, and new sparks waiting to ignite. But among them, there's one that threw the first punch. One song that started the engine and got it all moving. And now it's time to reveal it. Which of the 5 do you think it is? Among all these legendary songs, there's one that didn't just break the mold, it created it. A song that didn't just top the charts, it carved a path where there was none. The one that truly changed the course of history wasn't the most complex or the most polished. It was the most disruptive. Rock Around the Clock by Bill Haley and his Comets wasn't just a hit, it was the spark that ignited rock and roll in global pop culture. At a time when youth were only beginning to find their voice, this song became their soundtrack. It didn't talk politics or big cause, it talked about dancing all night. And for the teenagers of the 1950s, that was revolution. Before this song, rock was a whisper in the corners. After it, it was a roar. Record labels, movie studios, radio stations, television networks, they all turned toward this sound rising from the margins, from small clubs, and suddenly echoing in millions of homes. It became the first rock and roll song to hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. It lit the match on a pile of gasoline built up by years of cultural segregation. It gave rhythm to youth rebellion, and above all, it turned rock into a global phenomenon. So if we're talking about the song that changed the music industry, there's no better candidate than this one, because without it, the other four might never have found such fertile ground to grow. Rock Around the Clock didn't just make history, it started it. That's the magic of music. When it's honest, it finds its way. And when it connects, it changes everything. Now it's your turn. Which of these songs is your favorite? Is there one that left a mark on you, that takes you back, or just hits differently every time you hear it? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this isn't just about remembering history. It's about feeling it together. And if this video made you think, discover something new, or relive a moment, leave a like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Thank you so much for watching.